The moment the vet stepped through the door, Oliver knew. He was an orange tabby, rescued 4 years ago from a parking lot in the rain, and in that time he'd made peace with almost everything. Loud trucks, vacuum cleaners, the neighbor's dog barking through the fence, but not this, never this. His eyes locked onto the small syringe in her hand, his ears flattened against his skull. Every muscle in his body went still, the particular stillness of an animal deciding whether to run. "It's just one little shot," the vet said gently, crouching to his eye level. Oliver didn't move. He lifted one paw, slow and deliberate, and pointed it at her like an accusation. Then his mouth opened, and the sound that came out was not a meow. It was something closer to a siren, long and indignant, rattling off the tile walls of the exam room. For a moment nobody in the clinic spoke. Then the laughter started, first from the vet tech near the door, then the receptionist, then an elderly man in the waiting room who'd been trying to keep his own dog calm. Within minutes, the entire front office had gathered near the glass to watch. If your pet turns into a completely different animal the second you walk through the vet's door, you already know exactly what this cat is feeling right now. 2 hours earlier, none of this had seemed possible. Oliver had ridden in the car with his face pressed to the window, tail flicking at passing mailboxes. He liked car rides. He liked most things, actually. He greeted strangers. He tolerated the vacuum. He even let the neighbor's kids pick him up, which was more than most cats allowed. But the carrier had a smell, and smells for a cat are memory. The moment it clicked shut in the parking lot outside the clinic, something in him changed. His body lowered, his pupils widened. By the time they crossed the threshold into the waiting room, he wasn't the same cat who'd watched mailboxes an hour before. The waiting room told its own story that afternoon. 2 dogs sat obediently at their owner's feet, tails thumping against linoleum. A cat in a carrier in the corner hadn't made a sound since arriving, curled into the smallest shape she could manage. And then there was Oliver, announcing his presence to the entire room in a voice that echoed off the ceiling tiles. Heads turned. A little girl near the fish tank tugged her mother's sleeve and pointed. Somebody's phone came out, already recording. When they finally called his name and carried him back to the exam room, Oliver's posture had changed completely, ears pinned, whiskers pulled tight against his cheeks. His owner recognized the look. It was the same one Oliver wore during thunderstorms, back when he was newer to the house, and every loud sound felt like a threat. The room smelled like antiseptic and metal. Oliver's nose worked the air in short, urgent pulls. His eyes moved from the steel table to the cabinets to the sink, cataloging every unfamiliar shape. Then he saw it, the tray by the counter, the small glint of a needle. His whole body tensed. He wasn't the cat from the car anymore. He wasn't the cat who let children pick him up. In this room, with this smell, he was something older, something that remembered being small and cold and alone before anyone had ever shown him kindness. Vets were strangers who caused pain. That was the only thing his body could recall. The door opened. The veterinarian stepped inside, holding the syringe in one steady hand, her voice already soft and low. "All right, Oliver, let's take a look at you." Oliver planted all 4 feet on the table. He did not blink. He did not look away. And as she took one step closer, he opened his mouth and let the entire clinic hear exactly how he felt about it. The vet set the syringe down. Oliver watched her hands, waiting for the next move in the fight he'd been so sure was coming. Instead, she pulled a low stool beside the table and sat, bringing herself level with him instead of looming over. "All right," she said quietly. "No rush." She didn't reach for him. She didn't reach for anything. She simply held her hand out, palm up, a few inches from his nose, and waited. Oliver's ears, still flat, twitched once. He studied the hand the way he studied everything unfamiliar, carefully, from a distance, looking for the trick in it. There was no trick. The hand didn't move. After a long moment, he leaned forward, just an inch, and touched his nose to her fingers. He drew back immediately, as if surprised at himself. She didn't push. She let him decide again. The second time, he stayed a little longer. His owner, still close by, watched the tension slowly drain out of Oliver's shoulders, the same way it had once drained out of him on the car ride home from the shelter, 4 years ago, the first time he'd let himself believe he was safe. The vet's hand moved slowly to the top of his head. One gentle stroke, then another. Somewhere underneath all that outrage, a low sound started up in his chest. He was still glaring. He was still, by every visible sign, furious. But he was purring. What happened next took less than a minute. The vet's hands moved with practiced ease, a quick check of his ears, a gentle press along his side, and then the shot itself, delivered so fast and so gently that Oliver barely registered it had happened at all. He flinched, more from memory than sensation, and then it was already over. He blinked, looked down at his own leg like it had betrayed him, looked up at the vet, as if to ask what exactly she thought she'd gotten away with. "All done," she said, smiling. "You did great." Oliver sat very still for a moment, processing. He had been ready for a battle. He had prepared his voice, his claws, every ounce of outrage he could summon, and somehow, without him quite noticing when it happened, the whole thing was already behind him. Around the room, the small crowd that had gathered, the tech, the receptionist, a curious vet assistant, broke into quiet applause. Someone said, "Good boy, Oliver," and he lifted his chin at the sound of it, as if he'd expected nothing less. His owner scooped him up, and Oliver allowed it, draping himself over his shoulder like a small, self-satisfied monarch returning from a campaign. They walked back through the waiting room together. The dogs glanced up. The quiet cat in the corner carrier peered out through the mesh. A few of the people who'd been watching earlier smiled at him as he passed, and Oliver, still riding the high of his own survival, arched his back and gave a slow, deliberate blink to no one in particular, the closest thing a cat can offer to a beau. In the car, his owner buckled him into the carrier and let out a long breath. "Well," he said, glancing back at Oliver curled tight in the corner, tail wrapped protectively around his paws. "That's over." Oliver didn't answer. He watched the parking lot slide past the window, ears still low, eyes still wary, as if some part of him wasn't quite convinced the danger had passed. Well, his owner smiled at the silence, certain the hard part of the day was finally behind them. He had no idea Oliver was already planning exactly how the evening would go. The front door opened, and Oliver marched inside like a soldier returning from war. He walked straight past his owner without a glance, past the food bowl, past his favorite spot on the couch. He settled himself on the far end of the windowsill, back turned, tail curled tight around his paws, radiating offense from every angle. "Oliver, come on," his owner said, laughing. "You're fine." Oliver did not turn around. The afternoon passed in quiet protest. Oliver ignored his favorite toy, left untouched on the floor. He ignored the sound of the treat bag, a sound that on any other day would have brought him running. When his owner sat down beside him on the windowsill, Oliver simply scooted a few inches further away, eyes fixed on something outside the glass. By evening, his owner tried again. He knelt down at eye level, the same way the vet had that morning. "I'm sorry, bud," he said quietly. "I know today was rough." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, Oliver turned his head. He studied his owner's face the way he'd studied the vet's outstretched hand, searching, careful, deciding. Then he stood, walked over, and pressed his head firmly into his owner's palm. The purring started almost immediately, low and rough, like it had been waiting all day to be let out. "Forgiven?" his owner asked. Oliver headbutted his hand again, harder this time, which was as close to a yes as he was ever going to give. In the weeks that followed, Oliver went back to being exactly who he'd always been, greeting guests at the door, sunbathing on the porch railing, tolerating the vacuum with weary dignity. The clinic visit became a story his owner told at dinner parties, complete with an impression of Oliver's outraged yell that never failed to get a laugh. Online, the video kept circulating. New comments appeared every few days. People tagged their own dramatic pets underneath it. Somewhere, a stranger had turned a screenshot of Oliver's pointed paw into a meme with the caption, "When the doctor says it's just a shot." Oliver, of course, had no idea any of this was happening. He only knew that the world had mostly gone back to normal. A month later, his owner grabbed his keys off the counter and called out, "Hey Oliver, wanna go for a ride?" Oliver's head snapped up instantly. He loved car rides. He came trotting across the living room, tail high, ready for an adventure. Then he rounded the corner into the hallway and saw the carrier. He stopped so fast his back paws skidded slightly against the floor. His eyes went wide, his ears dropped flat. Slowly, without breaking eye contact with the carrier, as if looking away might make it more dangerous, he began backing away, one careful step at a time, until he'd retreated safely behind the couch. His owner burst out laughing. "It's not even for you. We're taking the neighbor's dog to get groomed." Oliver did not come out from behind the couch for the rest of the afternoon. That night, once the carrier had been put away and the house had gone quiet, Oliver climbed up onto the couch and curled against his owner's side, purring softly, completely at ease. He would probably never enjoy the vet. He would probably announce his displeasure to the entire clinic every single time. But every person who met him that day, the techs, the receptionist, the strangers watching from their phones, went home smiling because of it. Sometimes the bravest patients aren't the quiet ones. Sometimes they're the ones who complain the whole way through, and still, in the end, find the courage to trust.